This is the Jennifer Hawkins Australia knows and loves. On show, a dazzling smile for all. But this is a side you may not have seen. Her compassionate ease with a young man who's just been diagnosed with a brain tumour. Jen met 18-year-old Jordan Rose today at the John Hunter Children's Hospital and clearly made his day.
Makes hospital more appealing. But yeah.
She's just signed on as a patron for the Hunter Children's Research Foundation, which has so far raised $1 million for the cause.
It meant a lot to me actually to sort of lend my time to bring awareness to the research that that is happening here for all these sick children and just all the hard work that goes into looking after them.
And today Jen got a taste of that, from premature babies like little April Rose to live wire Braden O'Donoghue, who's fighting leukaemia. Transformers are his thing.
He was totally just entrenched in his Transformers, so I thought I'd play with him with those. But he's like, oh, I really want the spider that goes with the Transformer. I'm thinking, I really want to buy that for him. You just want to do anything to help them out.
Today, Jen made an impression on everyone, including fellow patron, retired paediatrician Cliff Hosking.
She's extraordinarily beautiful, but everyone says that. But she's also very personable. I found that she was terrific, and she really has a nice feeling for kids and a nice feeling for people.
Together, they hope to raise awareness of the charity and important funding for future generations.
It's kind of surreal to walk through and to meet these young kids. It makes you kind of emotional.
It's lunchtime at Merriweather's Scenic Lodge nursing home, and hair, or lack of, is a real talking point. Not a problem for most of these men, but there's a resident south of the Bellbird unit who's creating a bit of a fuss. Ralph, the once cocky parrot, now feels like a bit of a galah.
Well, he's losing his feathers, basically.
He's going bald.
He is, he's going bald, although he is over 30 years old, I believe.
And that's triggered somewhat of a midlife crisis. Ralph was once a popular ladies' man.
He is. He likes all the ladies here.
But now he's lost all confidence and started playing hard to get. His role at the nursing home is in jeopardy.
And as with all of our residents at Anglican Care, we take great care of them and look after them well. So we've been really feeding Ralph up, and the added company has helped, but as you can see, he still has got some major issues that we're really wanting to help him with.
So who better to help than a Polly? State member for Charlestown, Andrew Cornwall, is also a vet and came up with a surefire treatment.
Well, Ralph's a 30-year-old single male living in a small bachelor pad. He needs to get out more, he needs a girlfriend, and I think we need to get him into some more luxurious premises.
And maybe then our feathered friend will realise that bald is beautiful. Nat Wallace, NBN News.
This was the moment the Jets lost momentum against Brisbane, and it left Ben Kennedy with a concussion. 19-year-old Jack Duncan got the call-up and admits he didn't have time for nerves.
It was awesome. A bit unexpected, stuff like that happens during games. But yeah, I guess straight away in there and straight away into the action. But it was an amazing experience.
If Kennedy doesn't travel to Adelaide, Duncan is expected to remain on the bench as Matthew Nash returns from a groin injury.
Yeah, Nash hasn't played for a couple of weeks, but he's obviously got a lot of experience, so that is really pleasing from a coaching point of view.
While the current focus is on Adelaide, the build-up to the home game against the Victory has also begun. Harry Kuehl has fired the first shot at good mate Michael Bridges.
Don't like him, never liked him. I don't know what this big fuss is about,
Is he going to outshine you?
Never. Obviously, I'm coming up there on December the 3rd to play against him, and it's going to be interesting because if there's a tackle there to be won, I'm going to go straight through him.
Bridges thinks otherwise.
He'll have to get close to us, won't he? We'll have to wait and see. A bit of banter, But we've had a little bit of talk on the phone and that, and we said we'll see who gets the first kick on each other and see what happens.
Kuehl should return from a hamstring injury for Sunday's clash with Gold Coast, while Bridges has put his hand up for a much-anticipated comeback on Friday.
I said to one of the lads, I felt like a teenager again. You get the butterflies, and it was just great to put the boots on and do something that you love.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. It was 39 years since Newcastle Golf Club last hosted the New South Wales Open. The tournament is locked in for 2 more years, but the host club is hoping that deal will be extended. Despite wet weather in the lead-up, officials and players were happy with the event.
I think if we had the tournament next week, I think we'll be talking about this golf course as one of the best in the state.
Club officials admit they were hoping for bigger crowds, especially with several Hunter players in the mix. One of those was Charlestown's Jake Higginbottom, who finished equal second. The 18-year-old rates the performance as one of his best, even though he was disappointed with his putting.
I come out here this week to try and win, so that's what I do every week. That's why I play golf.
Higginbottom is preparing to cap off a big month, which also included a solid performance at the Australian Open.
I've got a week off, and then I'm playing the New Zealand Open in 2 weeks, so get ready for that. But then I've got nothing on for the rest of the year, just have a rest and chill out.
As for the champion, Adam Crawford is celebrating his first win on the Australasian PGA Tour.
It's great to win any state open, and to win one with some of the great names on the trophy that this one does, it's fantastic.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Police found all the usual loot: boxes of jewellery, strings of pearls, laptops, watches and iPhones, stashed in a Lambton hotel room they raided late yesterday. But then there were hundreds of near worthless items.
It's certainly not something that you see every day.
Police believe a 38-year-old Newcastle woman is behind the thefts, and they're amazed at what the haul includes: old gumboots, used notepads, pencil cases, a garden lamp, even a set of bagpipes.
It's quite surprising. At this stage, we've linked property to 4 break-and enter offences that have occurred between the 16th and the 18th of November, both in the Lake Macquarie and Newcastle local area commands.
Police found much of the stolen property crammed into this car. It took officers nearly 3 hours just to seize the bizarre hoard and take it back to the station. There's so much property, officers were still cataloguing it today. While some has been traced back to 4 homeowners, police believe many of the items have come from other plundered properties. Detectives are trying to track down the woman.
We're seeking to speak to her in relation to these items and continue our investigations.
Madeline McKell, NBN News.
This is what workers driving north to Singleton have to deal with almost every morning. A bumper-to-bumper New England highway.
I just see the driver frustration level as rising extremely more than it is already.
From late 2013, the Hunter Expressway should ease congestion between Thornton and Branxton, but there are fears it'll simply shift the problem to Singleton.
And from a business perspective, there's less businesses are going to be attracted to our area if they know that they're going to be constantly within traffic jams. So we need a bypass to take some of the vehicles that don't want to stop here away from the area.
But the biggest concern lies here on George Street, where it's feared an already busy part of the New England Highway will take a turn for the worse.
It's the only way through town, so it's going to be a massive bottleneck for people there.
A possible solution is to develop the Golden Highway, a route that right now isn't helping.
A lot of the workers are travelling to the areas between Singleton and Muswellbrook, so to turn off at the Golden Highway isn't a feasible way for them to get to work.
Council is now hoping a state-funded bypass feasibility study will support its argument, and it won't help congestion, but today 2 speed limits through the town were reduced from 60 to 50. Kevin Mettam, NBN News.
Set on 2,000 pristine hectares at Patterson, Tocal has been training the next generation of Australian farmers for 50 years. There are currently 4,000 distance and on-campus students enrolled.
This college is one of the last intact agricultural colleges in Australia, and it performs a major role within New South Wales agriculture, but also across the country.
It's different to just a normal riding college, like just training. It's learning about the horses, what to do with the horses, and different ways to overcome problems.
I think it's probably one of the best in Australia.
The college has fully functioning dairy, sheep and cattle farms, as well as horse breeding and training facilities with an annual turnover of $2.2 million, which funds all operating costs. Ensuring the business model remains viable is a goal identified in the recently released draft master plan.
The plan that really has come up with the idea that Tocal has to remain as a productive and profitable farm first.
Expanding links with other institutions and increasing renewable energy practices in farming are also on the agenda, as is preserving the area from development.
I think in the short term, I don't think urban encroachment is a major issue, but in the longer term it could well be.
The plan will be open for comment until the end of January. Kath Landers, NBN News.
Once traditional rehab finishes for people, they're out in the community a bit at a loss. And so a group like this brings people together that have had similar experiences and they can support each other.
In a shed 12,000 k's from the North Pole, workers are assembling in the name of Christmas. But these elves aren't like any you've heard about.
Hi, I'm Bruce, and they call me late for dinner.
Hi, I'm Kim. They call me Toy Boy.
And I'm the boss.
Together, they make a mean team.
It's a woodworking club formed of all the local people interested in woodworking. Some may not have worked in timber before. So they come in here and we teach them how to screw the timber up.
And they've clearly been doing a pretty good job at that.
Toys in every store.
For disadvantaged kids. They call it Operation Christmas. The plan, work out how to make some toys and then keep going and going until they take shape.
We're only at the early stages, so I can't stop.
One of the criteria is to have a thick skin. Yeah.
This year, they're working on a target of about 300 toys. And with the big day just around the corner, concentration is the key.
You can get your fingers close, so you can chop your finger off if you get too close. So you've got to always keep on the line and just keep pushing slightly.
While children in East Timor will see most of these goods, the reward is just as great for these workers.
Well, it's settled me down a lot, put it that way. It's given me a purpose in life. We all do what we can with what we've got.
And that's part of what makes this Christmas workshop magic. Nat Wallace, NBN News.
James Nitties was a constant threat during the opening 3 rounds of the New South Wales Open, but illness and fatigue took their toll and he dropped several shots on the final day to finish in a tie for 6th.
Sort of had a bit of an off week. It was, I felt like I could have given it more of a crack, and in myself I felt like I should have won, but it was still a positive week.
The 29-year-old will now spend a few days fine-tuning his game at home before flying to the US on Friday to prepare for the final stage of the PGA Tour's qualifying school. In a major boost, the event is being held at the same course where he secured his card in 2008.
California golf is up near Palm Springs, where the tournament is the best conditioned golf courses, some in the world. So apart from Melbourne and the Sandbelt, it's pretty spectacular up there. So if you play well, you get rewarded.
Nitties will be joined by Toronto's Nathan Green, who narrowly made it through the second round of qualifying last weekend. Fellow Hunter golfer Nick Flanagan missed the cut. Nitties says Q School is like the toughest job interview of your life, 6 rounds in a row.
You're pretty much playing for work next year. You play good, you get a PGA Tour card. You play bad, and you're on the minor tours. I want to get back there and prove that I can win out there. So it's pretty pressure-packed 6 rounds of stressful golf.
Nitties will return to Australia for the Masters in December, but his trip to the US means he'll miss the PGA Championship, which tees off at Coolum on Thursday. The Hunter will still be well represented by Muswellbrook's Kurt Barnes, Belmont's Brendan Smith, and Novocastrian's Lee McKechnie and Aaron Townsend. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
There's an old saying, you get what you give. If that was applied to the mining tax, the Hunter would be in for a cash bonanza.
There needs to be clear recognition from all levels of government that the Hunter region contributes a lion's share of the black coal for this nation. So we want to make sure that there is funding coming back.
Federal MP Joel Fitzgibbon says it will, and that the mining tax will help boost superannuation savings, help small business and fund infrastructure projects. Of those, Mr Fitzgibbon has highlighted 4. They include the Hunter Expressway, a rail overpass at Scone, road improvements through Muswellbrook and Singleton, as well as upgrading Broke Road.
There's no surprises there. We all know what they are. We know what projects need to be put on the table.
The Minerals Council of New South Wales says for projects to get off the ground, political differences between state and federal governments need to be put aside.
There certainly is the discussion regarding state level royalties versus the federal mineral resources rent tax. But to the people in the Hunter, it's all the same. They just want to see that the Hunter infrastructure base is funded the way that it should be.
Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
It's no secret the Newcastle Alliance is unimpressed with the City Council's performance. 2 weeks ago it called for its sacking. Today Chairman Paul Murphy confronted civic leaders, asking again what they're doing to revive the struggling CBD.
They've taken a few issues on board and have said, they'll find a few things out for us and come back. But in general terms, nothing's really changed.
This is means of keeping the lines of communication open with the business community. We welcome their input.
The main issues tabled at this morning's meeting: the proposed hike in business rates, the 30% increase in the cost of parking and the installation of more meters.
You've got small businesses that are just struggling to survive. I mean, these are people that have got their houses on the line, families involved, and all the Newcastle City Council is doing is disencouraging people to come into the city, and if they do, fine them and scare them out never to come back again.
They're also concerned about the effect of people that want to go into a shop for 10 or 15 minutes, and we're looking at a possibly 15-minute no charge for inner city meters.
The Alliance fears it's getting nowhere and is again urging the state government to take action.
We're still calling on the Newcastle member Tim Owen and the Minister for Local Government. They have to investigate Newcastle City Council.
Lauren Bladwell, NBN News.
The speed limits of 100 roads across the state are about to come under scrutiny. The New South Wales government has received around 2,500 submissions from motorists about zones they want changed. The Hunter and its surrounds have 3 of the top 10 identified as most in need of change. The F3 came in at number 7, while the Pacific Highway at Port Stephens and Great Lakes, and again at Gosford and Newcastle, slotted in at 8 and 9. The NRMA isn't surprised by the results.
The evidence is pretty damning. Hunter motorists are frustrated with multiple speed zones, multiple speed signs to focus on. Take them away, make it simpler, and that will ultimately make it safer for Hunter motorists.
Also making the list are the Old Pacific Highway, Richardson Road, the Newcastle Inner City Bypass and Central Coast Highway. Formal reviews will begin in the next few weeks and are expected to be completed in March. While the government isn't making promises about changing the speed zones, the NRMA is confident that at least some will be simplified.
The feedback that we've had is that the changes will come into play mid-next year, which is good news, and let's get on with it, get the review over and done with.
Madeline McKell, NBN News.
she just grew out of her other one, so it was just like, this one's bigger. She's getting better at it now. She can steer and not crash into things. So yeah, no, she's one of the other kids.
I quickly picked it up, put it in the trailer, and took it home. We put it in a cupboard, and it's been there just about ever since.
A change of pace for Michael Bridges today as he joined the Hunter Sports Group to announce his team's latest sponsor, QR National.
They'll be located on both the jets and the night shorts.
The 33-year-old has been preparing for an anticipated return to the playing field, but missed the last 2 games due to illness. Now he's ready for anything that comes his way.
If I'm needed and when I'm needed, whether we're winning the game to slow things down or losing the game to try and make something happen, we'll wait and see. But just to be back in the squad and be part of the team again I'm delighted with that.
He and fellow English striker Francis Jeffers sound like an exciting prospect up front, but Bridges says there are other options.
We're not blessed with the greatest of pace, but then you've got Griffo and Brocky and Ruben Zankovic that have the legs around us. So we've got the brain and they've got the pace, so it makes for a nice combo.
Newcastle is up against an Adelaide side dealing with dramas on and off the field. It seems like the perfect time for the Gents to strike, especially after going so close to silencing the Roar.
As I said before, a lot more belief in what we're doing, and they actually believe that they can do certain things within the game that maybe they thought was not possible at the beginning of the season.
Kevin Messam, NBN News. Nathan Outteridge and Dean Jensen have been regulars on the winners' podium this year, but a regatta at Weymouth in England proved the most memorable. It confirmed what many already believe, that the pair are the best 49er class sailors in the world.
We won the pre-Olympics on a countback, so it was a tired event. We had to fight really hard, and it was quite pleasing to come away with still being undefeated on the Olympic waters.
But Outteridge admits that doesn't help.
We have a lot of pressure, I guess, placed upon us from the Australian sailing team. They expect, we're one of the guys who are meant to win medals for the country, but at the same time, it also gives us a lot of confidence, and I think a lot of other teams fear us in a way because we're always up there.
Only weeks ago, the duo took out the World Cup in Melbourne. Next month, it's off to Perth for the World Championships, and all the travel makes Outteridge really appreciate being home at Wanji.
Supportive last year before we went to the games, we had a big night, just to celebrate the fact that we were selected, and I was told, if you don't get a medal, don't come back. And when I showed up without the medal, they were still here all supporting me.
Kevin Messam, NBN News.
A bloody handprint and smashed window, evidence of last night's violence. Police were called to this Croydon Street property just after midnight following reports of shots being fired.
Shortly after arriving, police secured a perimeter and a search was commenced for the gunman.
Detectives believe the home's 78-year-old owner was shot in the stomach and left shoulder as he answered a knock at his front door. Police dogs found a 23-year-old man under a home in nearby Thomas Street. Negotiators were called in and after a 4.5-hour standoff, Lewis Falk was arrested.
Located at the scene was a firearm which police seized as an exhibit and will be introduced as evidence.
The elderly victim remains in a serious condition at John Hunter Hospital. Police believe the two men knew each other. This morning, Falk was charged with shooting with intent to murder and 3 firearm-related offences. Falk sat silently in the dock during his brief appearance at Newcastle Local Court. The defence didn't apply for bail, which Magistrate Mark Buscombe formally refused. He's now due to reappear in February next year. Madeleine McKell, NBN News. MJ Finnegan's, Fanny's nightclub and the Cambridge Hotel have been named among the state's top 10 most violent venues.
It's disappointing for Newcastle that we still have so many premises that are on the tiered list.
But the AHA argues trading restrictions, particularly the city's 1am lockout and 3am enforced closures, are to blame.
That's causing angst on the street, that's causing problems for transport. And the results are that we're seeing an actual increase in the number of premises that are listed on Tier 1 and Tier 2 in Newcastle.
Mr DeWitt says pubs in Wollongong have disappeared from the list because the city has adopted a different approach to alcohol-related crime, where individuals, not venues, are held accountable. The King Street and Belmore hotels, as well as the Queen's Wharf Brewery, also had black marks recorded against them for having 13 or more incidents at their premises within a year. The brewery is the only Hunter-based pub new to the list, but its owner isn't worried that patrons will be scared away by its inclusion.
We're a very large hotel. We see thousands or tens of thousands of patrons per annum, and considering there's only been 13 incidents that have occurred over the last 12 months, whilst it's not great, it's still not a bad result.
Meanwhile, several pubs, including the Kent Hotel and Candy Bar, will be removed from the violent venues list following a drop in assaults on their premises. Madeleine McKell, NBN News.
It seems affordable housing is increasingly becoming out of reach for more and more Australians.
Over the last 10 years, we've seen house prices increase by 147% and incomes by just 57%.
Welfare and community lobby group Australians for Affordable Housing today released results of a study it claims shows the extent of the situation.
Housing stress is for when people are on low incomes, the lowest 40% of incomes, and they're paying more than a third of their income on housing costs.
It found the Hunter is one of the worst affected regions in the state. Great Lakes tops the list with 53% of renters struggling to keep a roof over their head. It's a similar story in Cessnock, Lake Macquarie and Newcastle. The figures are frightening, but for those included in the statistics, it's an even scarier picture. The Christopherson family was homeless for 10 months, unable to secure a rental.
We lounge surfed, friends' houses, slept in the car, we camped, motels.
It just made us feel really down that we weren't able to provide a house for the kids and a stable environment.
The number one reason that families have contacted this service over the last 18 months has been for homelessness. That's a trend I've not seen in 30 years of welfare.
The state and federal governments are now being pressured to step in.
They can invest in the National Rental Affordability Scheme, which builds discounted market rental housing, and they can also address the tax incentives for investors.
Kath Landers, NBN News.
%60 of the world's mining software is created here in Australia and used around the world. Many people don't know that the safety devices and services that are pioneered here in New South Wales are used in mines across the world.
After impressing at Coolum last year, Charlestown's Aaron Townsend was always going to be a threat. Today he sent a warning to his rivals, carding a 5-under to set the early pace.
It was humid conditions early, but the course is in fantastic shape, so I hit some nice shots early. It was a bit of a slowish start, only 1 under around the back 9, but then sort of got on a good roll on my finishing 9.
The One Asia Tour's Order of Merit leader Andre Stoltz enjoyed a similar start, but there were also some shaky moments. The Central Coast product recovered, setting himself up nicely on the greens again and again. It earned him 3 birdies on the front 9 and a real shot at another good result. Kevin Mettam, NBN News. After a flying start to the season, the W League Jets have hit a wall. They've suffered 2 consecutive losses against Sydney and most recently Canberra, conceding 7 goals in the process. Goalkeeper Melissa Barbieri believes a lack of confidence and self-belief is to blame.
We're a young team, we've got quite a few young players, and I think them actually coming out of their shell and realising that they're good players is what we need to do for the next weekend's match and really dominate our opponents.
Defender Gemma Simon proved her worth in attack at the weekend. Now, co-coach Clayton Zane wants that same determination at the other end of the pitch.
Defensively, we really need to tighten up, and we do have a young team, so we're really going to do some work before the match on our wing backs and make sure that our back four are working together.
Meanwhile, the men's squad has made an oath to never be silent on violence against women. As part of White Ribbon Day, the boys tackle Adelaide tomorrow and are also promising to keep up the intensity, which almost broke Brisbane.
We don't just want to be there and compete with them this week and then the next week go back down the ladder. So we want to set that standard.
Goalkeeper Matthew Nash gets his first chance of the season to impress.
No one likes sitting on the bench, and I think I'm good enough to play regularly. So it's a new coach in at the moment, so I don't think Gary's seen a lot of me play. So getting out there and impressing him definitely would be on my mind.
Kevin Messam, NBN News. Prior to the last election, then opposition leader Barry O'Farrell said he wouldn't sell any generators. Now that's changed. Hunter unions are planning a rebuttal, which could mean region-wide industrial action.
We believe that the legislation will go before Parliament next February. So if that's what happens, that's when the action will really start.
Newcastle's Tim Owen is the latest MP under fire. He told ABC Radio this morning that the Hunters Electrical Trades Union has already accepted the sale, but unions are adamant they'll fight the move. Upper Hunter MP George Souris has also been criticised. Muswellbrook Mayor Martin Rush is calling for his resignation. The Hunters' 6 power stations employ more than 1,000 people, jobs unions fear for.
So basically a private entrepreneur will take it over. They'll be kept to some sort of a deal for a period of time, maybe 2, 3, maybe even 5 years. But eventually there'll be massive job reductions, massive increase in electricity prices, and a lot more contracting out of the work.
Meanwhile, the Hunter Business Chamber wants to know where the $5 billion generated from the sale will go.
We understand that there is a severe infrastructure backlog across the state, but we need to know what the flow-on effects for the Hunter region will be, as the majority of those assets are housed in this region.
Kevin Messam, NBN News.
When it comes to attracting tourists, it seems the Hunter does it better than most.
The Hunters' growth figures are better than other major centres around Australia. Australia internationally is growing by 2-3%, dollars by about 4-5%, and the Hunter region's doing better than that. Quite significantly better.
In fact, according to Tourism Australia, over the past 12 months, the Hunters' international visitor numbers have risen by 7%, while their average spend in dollars is up a huge 27%. Domestic tourism numbers are also strong, up 8%, while spending is up 12%. But while the $1.1 billion industry is far from floundering, there is one big attraction the region desperately needs.
I do think a great convention facility would do Newcastle and the Hunter a great favour, because it's sort of, midwinter, midweek business that would keep the hotels full, encourage others to build new hotels.
The construction of such a convention centre would have been a certainty if the state government had kept an election promise to bid for a 2017 Newcastle-based International Expo. Madeline McKell, NBN News.
It's a buzzy little bee with a big job to do. What looks like a toy is actually an innovative device to help children deal with needles. Taylor Farrell has been coming to John Hunter Children's Hospital every month for the last 11 and a half years for the treatment of a rare medical condition. And every month, Taylor has to endure a painful cannula insertion. But it's just become a little easier. Literally taking the sting out of the procedure. The device simply uses a combination of vibration and a cold compress.
So by confusing the nerves around the site of the injection or the bloods, it actually minimises the actual needle.
The Children's Hospital is now the proud owner of 40 Buzzies, thanks to the fundraising efforts of these school kids and their friends. They put on a concert and raised more than $4,500 to buy the Buzzies for the hospital.
We've had one that we've been trying out, and now to have them in all areas of the hospital is fantastic.
A generous gift in the season of giving. Kate Haberfield, NBN News.
Of course, there are thousands of people who just walk through the corridors of the hospital, and many of them are waiting around, waiting for things to happen to their relatives and so on. And so it does give them a focus where they can hopefully see something pleasant.
Figures show that some 76 homicides occur each year in this country as a result of domestic violence.
Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn all offer instant contact with hundreds, even thousands of people around the world. But is it really necessary that we tell so many so much?
I reckon that everybody has a story about somebody in their friend group that
How did they get in there to start off with? There are a whole series of relationships that possibly aren't real.
Social media commentator Dave Abrahams has created National Defriend Week in an effort to get people to focus on real relationships. He suggests that we go through our friends and followers list and give them a good spring clean.
It is a cleansing thing. I've done it myself and it does feel a little good.
He acknowledges that cutting people off isn't always pleasant, but says there are a few ways to do it.
We do have some lovely etiquette guidelines because we run the risk of actually offending people, and some people do get heavily offended if you defriend them or unfriend them.
Perhaps the best way to de- or unfriend somebody without hurting their feelings is to have a simple conversation. Excuse me, Pete.
Yes.
Look, I'm giving my Facebook account a bit of a spring clean, and while I think that you're a great guy, I just don't think it's necessary that we're Facebook mates anymore. And then it's as simple as clicking a button and clearing out the clutter. Madeline McKell, NBN News.
Conditions were perfect on day 2 at Coolum, and Lee McKechnie was one of the first to take advantage. A week after finishing second at the New South Wales Open in Newcastle, Queensland's Anthony Summers continued his solid form but was also cursing missed opportunities. Starting at 3 under, the ever-colourful Kurt Barnes announced his arrival on day 2 with a bang. The Muswellbrook local missed 2 long-range eagle chances but tapped in for birdie to help himself to 3 under after 7 holes. His only blemish of the round was a bogey on 12. Newcastle's Aaron Townsend was looking to back up a bogey-free first day. His approach to the 13th wasn't one of his best, but he recovered to finish as one of the front runners heading into the weekend. He's one of the elder statesmen in the world of professional bull riding. But Brendan Clark can still mix it with the best.
The other competitors are not really what you're competing against, it's the bull itself. So, but they don't know that I've got a better bull than them drawn, so my job is only to stay on him and I can beat him all day long.
The boy from Morpeth has literally endured an up-and-down year in the US, hampered by a recurring hand injury.
I actually aggravated it at the start of the year, which is not a real good time to do that. So it held me back a little bit, but I worked around it.
Despite the setback, Clark says he can't wait for the 2012 series, believing his form at the back end of this year has been as good as ever. He'll finish 2011 at the PBR event in Tamworth this weekend, ready to prove there's still plenty of fire in the belly.
It's too dangerous a sport to be doing it when you're just doing it for the money or doing it because you have to. So I'm still having fun doing it.
Over the past few weeks and under the cover of darkness, contractors assigned to the construction of the $1.5 billion Hunter Expressway have been busy lifting 14 girders over the F3. The concrete beams form the foundations for 3 new bridges at the freeway's Newcastle interchange. The monumental task has been captured in this time-lapse photography.
It's not something you do every day. It was a very large crane. They're large girders, they're about 80 tonnes each, so they're big girders over the F3, so it was certainly worth watching.
Mr Chatburn is in charge of the expressway's 13-kilometre long eastern section. He says the northbound exit ramp should be open in August next year, with the project running on schedule.
A lot of the risks that we saw at the start of the project we've overcome, so it is going particularly well at this stage.
The Hunter Expressway should be complete in 2013. Madeline McKell, NBN News. Last month, John Britton and Christy Gulliver's rental home was sold. They were immediately issued with an eviction notice and since then have applied for 35 new homes without success.
We've pleaded with owners, we've offered extra rent, extra bond.
They both work and say money isn't a problem. But with so many people applying for too few rental properties, they say they keep missing out to professional couples. They have to be out of their home by Monday and are growing increasingly desperate.
We've put ads in the paper. We've ran ads in the paper saying a situation like please help us, pleading for someone to be out there and help us. We've had no calls regarding them.
Today they packed up their home, the whole family pitching in.
The truck's coming tomorrow to take everything to storage and basically after that we'll be living in our car, sleeping in the car.
Little Brianna is hoping someone embraces the Christmas spirit and helps her family out.
A month till Christmas, our daughter doesn't want presents, she just wants a house. Like, for a 5-year-old to say that, it's pretty sad.
Madeline McKell, NBN News.
The Jets dominated possession in the first half but simply couldn't convert pressure into points. Jeremy Brockie registered Newcastle's only shot on target before the break. Adelaide waited for an opportunity and it presented itself when Jite set up Ramsey. Matthew Nash was keen to prove he's a worthy replacement for Ben Kennedy, while Tiago and Nikolai Topor-Stanley looked to assert their authority. With half an hour remaining, Adelaide defender Nigel Bogard saw red for abusing the ref, but the Jets couldn't take advantage. Labano Haliti had a late claim for a penalty waved away before the Jets survived a scare of their own.
The ball speed was too slow and people taking too many touches on the ball. When they're playing against 10 men, you need to get some width, you need to move the ball quickly, you need to move them.
Newcastle will now prepare for Harry Kewell's Melbourne victory, with Marko Jesic, Ben Kantarovski and Michael Bridges coming back into the mix.
I know it'd be great for your media guys for Bridgie versus Kewell, so we'll see if we can help you out.